What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. Tonight we're playing a massive 10-25 game at Texas Card House in Dallas. We buy in for $10,000. This game is huge. Let's get started. I'm in middle position with Ace King, my very first hand. I raised to $75. The button calls 75, and now the small blind thinks he wants to play for more, so he bumps it up to $250. The small blind has about $2,000 in his stack, and for a 10-25 game, that's less than 100 big blinds, so we are going to be putting in the 4-bet here, looking to just try to get it all in with the small blind. I bump it up. I 4-bet to $625. I'm not a big fan of playing Ace King super aggressive against recreational players because most of the time when they 3-bet out of position, they have queens, kings, and aces, and we're not doing that great against that hand. However, there's just no way I'm going to be flat calling with such a strong hand and let the button come in behind. We raise it up here. The small blind goes into the tank for a while, but eventually he decides to let this one go. This session we play a ton of hands, so I hope you guys are ready for some rapid fire hand history. Next, Under the Gun opens to $75. This is a tighter player, so I decide to just flat call here with pocket tens next to act. I think you can mix in a 3-bet or a flat from this position, and I decide to just call, but the button wants to play for more. He re-raises here to $275. The Under the Gun player very quickly calls. I make the call as well. 3 ways to an ace, queen, 4 flop. Not the best board for us. We check over to the button who butts out a bet and we fold. Moving on, Under the Gun raises to $75, folds all the way back over to me, and the big blind with king jack offsuit, I complete here for a call. We see a board of ace, king, rag with 2 diamonds, so I have second pair with a pretty good kicker. I check and he bets $100. We have a pretty standard call. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, bringing in the flush. I check and he checks back. River 6 of hearts. Sometimes we could be leading out here to try to get called by queens, jacks, or tens, but this time I decide to check, and the Under the Gun player bets $205, so kind of an interesting spot whether we want to hero call here or let this one go. I'm leaning more towards a fold with this player. I don't think he's going to be bluffing for this size on the river. It's definitely possible for him to have an ace X hand that checked back on the turn and now wants to go for value on the river. I do think I could check raise here to a massive sizing, trying to represent a flush because he checked back the turn, so he most likely does not have a flush. I do have the jack of diamonds in my hand, so I do block some flushes that he could have. However, nobody really likes to fold here in Texas, so I just let this one go. An interesting spot in this next hand where there's an Under the Gun limp for $25. Under the Gun plus 1 races to $100. I have pocket tens on the button. I make the call. The limper makes the call. 3 ways to a board of 6, 8, 9, 2 hearts. We flop an overpair and a gut shot to any 7 will make us a straight. When it checks to the Under the Gun plus 1 player, he bets $175. I think I have one option here, and that is to just call. So that is what I do, and the limper ends up folding. Turn ace of spades shouldn't be a great card for either of us. I don't think he's going to be c-betting on the flop unless he has a hand like ace X of hearts. He does continue for $275, and this opponent I played with a couple times here in Dallas, and he's definitely capable of putting in some double or even triple barrel bluff, so I don't think I can fold just yet. Looking back now while I'm editing, I do think I could just get away with a pretty tight fold here. However, we are drawing to basically the nuts. Any 7 will give us a straight, and I would expect a 10 would be good as well. And we could still have the best hand. He could be barreling here with a flush draw or just total air. So we make the call going to the last card, which pairs the board. It's a 6. My opponent really should not have any 6s, and I probably won't have many 6s either after I call the flop and the turn. He decides to lead out for a massive sizing here, $1,050, which is just a huge polarized bet on this river. He's basically representing a full house like aces, pocket 8s, or pocket 9s. I just don't think he's ever betting for value with a hand like ace-jack or ace-queen for the sizing, so he's saying he's got a really strong hand or a bluff, but with our hand, I don't think we can call, so we have to just make another fold, and we will never know. He doesn't end up showing. Same situation as last hand. Under the Gun limps. Under the Gun plus 1 makes it $100. The same player who made it $1,000 just one hand ago on the river. This time we have pocket kings in the small blind. We are going to be playing for more chips. I make it $350. As you can tell, this game is getting pretty big, a 3-bet to $350. We're $5,000 effective with our opponent in Under the Gun plus 1, so we could be playing a massive $10,000 pot if he calls. However, this time he decides to fold. Unfortunately, we do not get any action here with pocket kings. Moving on to the next hand where we have pocket tens again for the 3rd time of the session. It seems like a trend so far. I make it $75. I get 3-bet next to act to $250, and I make the call. So we're heads up out of position to a board of 9, 4, 4, 2 spades. When I check over to my opponent, he puts out a bet of $175, which I don't really like. I opened from early position and got 3-bet next to act. I feel like a lot of his range is going to be pocket jacks, queens, kings, and aces, maybe ace, king, or an ace, queen. So if he has those over pairs bigger than ours, like queens, jacks, aces, and kings, this could get pretty expensive for us. However, we do have an overpair to the board. It is a 3-bet pot, so I'm going to continue with some caution. I make the call, and we see the 6 of clubs on the turn, not improving our hand. Now bringing 2 flush draws, I check over to him, and he continues big for $475. We are at an interesting spot. I don't think this particular player is going to be just double barreling off with like ace king of hearts or ace queen of diamonds on this turn card. There is some bluffs he can have, like ace king of clubs for the nut flush draw. He can have ace queen of spades for a flush draw as well. However, he's going to have a lot of overpairs that are bigger than ours, so it's a close spot between calling and folding. This time we do decide to make the call. This is Texas, and you don't really know what these people could have or what they could be doing. We're going to the river now in a pretty sizable pot, which is the 7 of diamonds. It doesn't help us at all, but both flush draws do miss. I check over to him, hoping that he will check and give up and we can win this pot. However, that is not the case. He decides to jam all in here for $1,700. I have heard this theory in poker that if you call the turn and the river doesn't change anything and your opponent continues to bet, you basically have to call with all the range that you call with on the turn, and the river doesn't really change anything. He should never have pocket 7s, and 8-9 for a straight is very unlikely, so technically we should be calling here on the river. My only argument with that is my opponent went all in here on the river, which does change things. I mean, that's a pretty big bet, a $1,700 bet, a pot-sized bet. My opponent 3-bet me pre-flop, bet the flop, bet the turn, and shoved all in on the river for the rest of his chips. This just screams a hand like jacks, queens, kings, and aces. Let's say Under the Gun +1 was an aggressive Texas pro, or maybe he's a European wizard who came across country lines to try to play poker in Texas. I would just close my eyes and put in the call. However, this guy does not play for a living. I don't think he's just blasting off here with just ace king or ace queen. So after tanking for over 2 minutes, I make the painful fold.
Show me a bluff. No, can't do it.
We switch seats to get a better view, and we get the pocket 10s again. 4th time this session. Wow, it seems kind of like a record. Under the Gun opens to $75. We call, big blind calls as well. 3 ways to a board of king, deuce, 3, 2 diamonds. The Under the Gun raiser, his name is Chris Moneymaker. We played a hand with him a couple of vlogs ago. He decides to check over to me, and I'm going to be putting out a bet here for protection. I don't want to give him a free card with hands like ace queen or ace jack suited, so I make it $100, folds back over to him, and he makes the call. When Chris check calls on this flop, I put him on a lot of pocket pairs like 10s, jacks, queens, or maybe a weaker king like king 10 or king 9 suited. So when the turn is a jack, it's an overcard to our pair, and it can improve him to a set. I'm not going to be turning my pocket 10s into a bluff. I'm just going to try to get to showdown. I check back. The river card brings in the flush. It's the queen of diamonds. He checks again, and I do think this is a spot that I could take a very large sizing trying to represent a flush. I think he would be c-betting almost 100% of the time if he flopped a flush draw, but I just decide to give up and check back, and it's a good thing we did because he shows pocket jacks for a set. That is going to beat our pocket 10s. We have been dealt in pocket 10s 4 times this session, and each time we have lost money, but I guess the poker gods are trying to test us because we get pocket 10s again for the 5th time this session. There's a $50 straddle. The button opens up to $200. I 3-bet here to $600. He thinks for a while, and he makes the call. Just like that, we are playing almost a $1,300 pot. Out of position, we see a king-high board. I decide to check, and he checks back. We check all the way down to the river, and finally, pocket 10s are good. We take down one of the first pots of this session. We've been playing about 3 hours so far, and this session has been pretty rough. We've had to fold a couple times on the river, and we're just not making too many big hands. We're down about $1,000 so far. There's three $25 limps, so button makes it $100. I have ace king offsuit in the big blind. I bump it up here to $400. The under the gun limper with about $1,500 in a stack makes the call for $400, which is just very odd. The button makes the call as well, so with about $1,200 in the middle, out of position with ace king, we see a jack high board. This board is pretty dry, so I'm not sure if I should be c-betting here or checking given the fact that I'm multi-way out of position. Ultimately, I decide to check over to under the gun, who decides to just jam all in here for a pot size bet of around $1,200. The button folds, and I don't think I have any choice here. I don't think I can call off a pot size bet with ace king, so I just let this one go. The tilt is starting to creep up here. I really have not won a hand the entire night. I've just been folding and losing, and I think it does affect me in this next hand. I have ace queen. There's a $100 raise. I call, big blind calls. We see a board of jack, jack, 8, 2 diamonds. Initial raiser bets $100, and I decide to put in a raise here. The initial raiser is a PLO player who's been waiting for his table, so he definitely is splashing around a lot more than regular players, so I put in a raise to $250. This is basically a value bluff. Sometimes I can get value from worse hands like flush draws and straight draws that he will call me with, and if I put a lot of pressure on the turn and the river, I could potentially get him to fold an overpair. But I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of this was just tilt coming up from the past hands of losing and just trying to force myself to win a pot. So when the turn is a 4 and he checks over to me, I think if I bet big here, I can get him to fold all of his straight and flush draws, and he can maybe fold hands like pocket 9s or pocket 10s, so I make it $700. Looking back, I don't really mind my bluff here. I have an ace and a queen in my hand, so I do block some strong hands he could have like ace jack and queen jack. I don't have a diamond in my hand, which means he could have a diamond draw that he might fold out on the turn or the river if he misses, so I don't really mind this play. However, my opponent very quickly makes the call, so we might have to empty the clip here if the river's a brick. Over $2,000 in the middle now. My heart is starting to race. We're probably going to have to pull off a massive bluff if we want to take down this pot. Going to the river, which is the 4 of diamonds. It double pairs the board and brings in that diamond flush draw. Not a good river because we're no longer ahead of queen or king high flush draws, and it gets even worse when my opponent decides to lead out for $500 here on the river. These are the times in poker that make you so frustrated you just want to flip over the entire table. I've been losing or folding the entire night, and I'm trying to pull off a bluff, and it seems that I'm bluffing right into the nuts. I'm almost 100% sure my opponent has a jack here. I don't think he'd ever be leading out on the river with anything but a jack. Most likely he would just be check calling with a flush. So I don't think I have any option here. I don't think a raise is good. So for the 17th time tonight, I make the fold. The only positive thing is that the table has about 3 PLO players that are waiting for their game, which means the action is turned up. I get pocket jacks here, make it $100 over a limp, c-bet a board, and take this one down. We haven't really got into a good spot all night, but maybe that will change when we pick up pocket aces from early position. I make it $75. Everybody folds except the big blind comes along with a call. Thank God we got some action here with pocket aces. We see a king 10-7 board. He checks, I bet, and unfortunately, he makes a fold. It is super frustrating when the table is good action, you're down money, and you just cannot get into any big pots. Next up, I have pocket 8s. There's a $50 raise and a call, which seems pretty weak to me. I want to play some bigger pots here, so I re-raise to $250. I think it's a close spot between calling here and raising, and I feel like both options are fine. We are 3 ways to a board of queen, 9, 10, 2 hearts. Yuck. Not what you're looking to see with pocket 8s. It checks to me, and I could be checking this one back, but if I bet small here, I do think I can check back almost every turn card and try to see a cheap river, so I make it $250. Neither of my opponents are scared because they both end up making the call. We see the 5 of clubs on the turn. The action goes check, 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 and the river is the 7 of diamonds. Initial raiser leads out for a bet, and again, for the 18th time now, we make the fold. This game is playing huge. There's a $50 straddle on in this next hand. There's a limp by a player with about $2,000 in his stack. I raise to $300. He makes the call. Heads up in position to a 9-7-3 board. He checks, and I decide not to bet on this board. I check this one back. Turn jack, and now he leads for a small sizing $200. Now this is going to smash his limp calling range with some 2 pairs and some sets, so I do think I could be folding here, but versus this sizing with 2 overcards and maybe we could possibly have the best hand here with ace high. I get sticky and make the call. Last card is a 6, and he bets $450, and you guys already know what I'm about to do. I'm sure you guys can hear the frustration in my voice. I'm down about $4,000 on the session. It's been really annoying. We've been picking up a ton of big, playable, premium hands, and we've basically just been losing every single one of them. The table is getting short-handed and looks like it's going to break soon, which is super annoying when you're stuck over $4,000. However, what is not annoying is pocket tens again for the 6th time of this session. What is going on? Pocket tens 6 times? I make it $75, get 2 callers, and finally, we flop a set on 10, 8, 3, 2 spades. After 6 tries, we finally make a set here with pocket tens. I lead out for $150. The button calls and the big blind calls, and we see the queen of spades on the turn. One of the worst cards in the deck. It brings in that front door flush, and it brings in a straight with jack 9, which is definitely a hand my opponents could be calling with pre-flop and on the flop. 3 ways on this turn card. I decide to check, and now the button, who's a pretty tight player, decides to put out some chips. He makes it $325, and my excitement quickly turns to frustration. We finally flop a set and get one of the worst turn cards in the deck. However, we're not going to be folding here. We check to check call and hopefully boat up on the river. I am praying for the dealer to pair the board, and he does. The river is the 3 of diamonds. We make a full house. I check over to him, and he checks back, shows queen jack for a top pair. We show pocket tens for a full house, and we finally win a pot. Unfortunately, after this hand, the 10-25 game does decide to break. We end up losing a little less than $4,000 here, but we have about 2 hours left to play on our session, so we head over to a 2-5 game, sit down with about $4,000, and immediately we get into some action. Middle position makes it $20. I'm in the cutoff with, you guys guessed it, pocket tens again for the 7th time this session. This must be a Guinness World Record. I'm going to have to call the record book. 7 pocket tens in one session. 3 ways to a queen high board. My opponent bets. I call and everybody else folds. The turn is a king. He checks. I check. The river's a brick. He checks. I check back. And pocket tens are good to win our first small pot here at 2-5. When I came to this 2-5 table, I wasn't going to record my hands because I like to keep the stake levels the same when I'm making a vlog. However, when I got pocket tens for the 7th time, I knew I have to record this hand, but I put my phone back in my pocket, and unfortunately, I end up missing this next hand. There's a $10 straddle. I have 9-7 of hearts in middle position. I raise to $35. The button calls, small blind calls, and straddler calls. So we're 4 ways to a queen 10 deuce 2 heart board. On this board, I have a 9 high flush draw and the range advantage, so I continue for $80. The button calls and the small blind calls. The under the gun straddler makes to fold. 3 ways to the 6 of spades on the turn card, now giving me a gut shot along with my flush draw. Nobody raised me on the flop, multi-way on this coordinated board, so I don't think my opponents will have anything better than just one pair here. So I think I can step on the gas and continue to bet big here, trying to put pressure on all their one pair hands and get them to fold hands like king high, ace high, or jack high. I bet $325 and the button snap jams all in. One of the worst things for me to see. Super annoying here. I was semi-bluffing and we get jammed on. The dealer counts out the chips and it's $650 more for me to call. We do have a strong hand, a straight draw, and a flush draw. We're down about $3,500 on the session, and we're not going to get it back by folding, so I decide to put in the call. Over $2,000 in the middle, we decide to run out the river 2 times. We are looking for a heart or an 8. The first river is a 7, and the second river is an 8, giving us a straight. My opponent shows king jack offsuit for king high, which means we have a pair on the top board and a straight on the second board. We are going to be scooping this pot. Might be one of the crazier hands that I've played. I did not think I was going to be taking this one down. When I saw the 8 on the river, I thought I was at least going to be chopping, but I will take it. We end up stacking this guy for over $1,000, and this ends up being our last hand of the night. We end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out for the night. Go. All right, guys, that is it for this one. I've actually never been to downtown Dallas before. I've been here for like 2 or 3 months and I've never actually checked out this view, which is pretty cool. Out here with Rogue on a Sunday afternoon. We're just hanging out, enjoying the sights and relaxing, kind of enjoying the weather, but it's still a little bit cold. As for these session results, lost a little less than $2,000. Didn't play my best, didn't play my worst, but I was kind of like thinking that this was going to happen when things were gonna start not really going my way. I've talked about this in the past couple of vlogs. I've been running so good for so long that I was just waiting for this to kind of happen where I don't make any big pocket pairs, I don't make any big sets, I don't cooler anybody, I'm the one kind of getting coolered, and that's kind of what happened in this session. It was kind of boring. I didn't get any huge pots or win any huge pots. I just kind of lost a lot. Kind of frustrating session, but I knew this was going to happen, so I have to try to stay tough mentally and try to play my best when you're going through somewhat of a downswing. I'm trying to play bigger stakes. I played 1025 last night. Friday night, I played a 25-50 session here at Texas Card House. I wasn't planning on vlogging, I wasn't planning on playing that big, but when I got there, the table looked pretty good for a 25-50 game, so I sat down, biggest game I've ever played. I bought in for $5,000. I doubled up right away Friday night, but then after that, I basically lost all my profit and then another like $3,000. I was kind of playing bad, I was running bad. I got queens versus aces, ace king versus queens, top pair, top kicker versus a set. I bluffed a couple times, that didn't work. I hero called a couple times and it didn't work. So I ended up losing $3,500 Friday playing a 25-50 game and then like $2,000 last night. So I want to keep it real with you guys. I showed you guys all the crazy wins I've had the last 2 months. So I got to document the losses. I'm like a 5.5K downswing right now, but I'm going to try to play bigger, trying to keep pushing the limit, pushing it, trying to play bigger games. I want to play more 25-50 if it runs, if the game's good in the next year or so, and then try to continue to play more 1025. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you liked this view. If you did, hit that like button. Comment down below if you have any questions or anything like that. And until next time, I'll see you. Okay, go, 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 go. Whoa! Get it, Will, get it, go, go! Whoa! Rogue!